Our next presenter is Chantelle Stewart from Studio Decker. Studio Decker are lighting designers. Their work ranges from small churches and small villages in Southern Ireland right through to North London High Street. I've had the pleasure of working with Chantelle, and she has a work ethos like none other. 24 hours. What an introduction, thank you. Okay, this is the view from our studio window, and we've chosen this image. It's quite a mundane instance where light converges with the weather, the topography and townscape to create a view almost approaching beauty. The sun is the simplest and most integrated light source, bound up in the fact of our environment and therefore our very existence. Tonight I'm going to talk about some of the incidents and moments of life that have informed our work to date, but specifically about how that's been an ongoing process towards finding the simplest way towards an effective formulation of architecture and light. Light is a potential to reveal a whole narrative about a place. Here, one is inside and the light entering tells you that your body is enclosed. One can feel the coldness of the steel mesh and the sharpness of the material. The pale, flat light suggests a wintry scene just out of view. Here, one is outside. The security grille suggests a very obvious separation. Despite the fact that there's a greater quantity of light where you're standing, the quality of the interior light suggests intimacy and togetherness. A primitive gathering of people around a fire, reminiscent of the cave or the hearth. Again, one is inside. This is an abandoned cottage that has no roof. The light is grazing across the exposed stonework of the chamfer of the window, which reveals and suggests almost a little kitchen shelf. But the dense walls cast enough of the shadow to offer a sense of the original rapid compression of space amidst the wide expanse and flat light of a rolling moorland. This spatial function of light informed our design for a temporary cinema under a petrol station canopy in Clerkenwell. The cold light referenced both the utilitarian structure of the film noir programming and stood in counterpoint when at the end of the show the perimeter curtain was raised to reveal a continuing sodium-lit life of the city around the audience. When we founded our practice, one of the first things we happened to do was visit my family home in Donegal. There's not much to do there at the best of times, so we began experimenting with light around some of the outhouses. This is our turf shed where my mum keeps the fuel for the fire, and this light to us communicates at least the memory of a warm, settled place that I can always go back to. A couple of years ago, we were invited to look at some temporary lighting projects on the old Spode pottery site in Stoke-on-Trent. Alan, the security guard, one of the remaining employees, gave us a tour of the building he'd worked in for 30 years. What struck us most here was the way that the light framed the transition between the spaces and enhanced the material and textural richness. All of the damage that had been done by the workmen for the administrators, ripping out anything of value. Other spaces remained completely untouched, and these changing patterns of light, material and volume, perhaps unnoticed in the working factory, were intensely poignant in the new redundancy of these spaces. These ideas informed our work for a temporary restaurant in a long vacant shop unit in Dewsbury. Each course was served on a different story, taking diners up and through the building. As they moved between floors, we were interested in how the diners, many of whom who had known the unit for years, might consider the divergence between their life and the life of the space. As you can probably tell by now, we love candlelight, and this unfortunate snapshot of me with my good friend Kate at a birthday party, and for some strange reason I'm wearing a pirate hat. Again, our influence here is how the tone of the light helps signal connection, a sense of community, and a shared sense of place. And this idea very immediately influenced our temporary lighting of a park in the suburb of Lisbon. This was part of a light festival, and we aimed to counteract the spectacle elsewhere by creating a notional moonlit promenade around the park, punctuated by discrete shared spaces for conversation, word watching, and just simply hanging around. These ideas of facilitating conversation and encouraging visitors to interpret propose and redefine a programme for the public realm are central to even our earliest projects together. And this is the anteroom of a cardboard structure that took over a bus lay-by on one of York's busiest carriageways. These sentiments, this time concentrated on a library building, were also at the centre of a very recent collaboration. The project identified the library as an essential element of civic life, of knowledge shared and explored, and tethered that to the emancipatory value of electricity embedded in the Carnegie motto, "Let there be light." Light can serve to obfuscate as well as clarify, and this collage of shadows was created by numerous street lights shining through the rose bush on our windowsill against the condensation on the glass. The striking thing is the effect of the external artificial lighting on the internal space. The same effect here contributed to a very different result. In this church on the west coast of Ireland, we worked to emphasise the spatial rhythm instigated by the structural roof trusses in the religious artworks. But this was supplemented by the quite beautiful effect of the new street lighting unrelated to our work through the stained glass windows. We approached this project with a similar aim to reinstate the spatial hierarchy of the church. But here, blue twilight punctuates the white planes behind the chancel arch, and an effect that's only visible from seats at the furthest edges of the space. Similarly, the sleight of hand of the temporary wooden brick folly is made explicit by the light leaking through the false mortar joints. However, the trick only revealed itself as one moved around the building. The tectonics, the ordering and joining of parts slipped in and out of view according to the visitor's position. Finally, despite the scale, this was another very simple installation. It rained for nearly a whole week, and this project, the photographer never really got the shot that we were looking for until after we'd left. The weather cleared and a resident took this shot, capturing everything we had imagined for the project, a complete accident of circumstances that we found on Flickr. But what was most unexpected was the reaction of the townspeople. The lights themselves had been there for years, but the minor change we made closed the gap between their lives and the city around them. This was and continues to be our ultimate objective as designers. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Chantelle?